Mia had always believed she was living the dream. From the outside looking in, she seemed to have it all: a loving husband, a beautiful home in one of the most affluent neighborhoods in the city, and a teenage daughter, Issa, who was blossoming into a young woman. Mia's life appeared to be the epitome of success: a perfect family, a successful businessman husband, and a lifestyle most could only dream of. Mia was the kind of woman who had worked hard to make her life what it was. In her early years, she had been career-driven, earning a degree in marketing and climbing the corporate ladder at a multinational firm. But when she met David, everything changed. David was charming, handsome, and ambitious. He was also deeply romantic. From the moment they met, Mia felt like the luckiest woman in the world. David was everything she had dreamed of in a partner: kind, attentive, and passionate. They got married within 2 years of meeting, and Mia happily transitioned from her fast-paced career to becoming a stay-at-home wife and mother, dedicating her life to her family. She took pride in being the backbone of their household, ensuring that everything ran smoothly, from managing their home to raising Issa and supporting David as he built his business empire. David had started from humble beginnings but quickly rose to success as a businessman. He had founded a construction and development company that had grown into one of the largest in the city. His dedication to his work was admirable, but it also meant long hours at the office and frequent business trips. Early on in their marriage, Mia had been able to overlook David's workaholic tendencies, convincing herself that it was all for the greater good of their family. The sacrifices he made, the long hours, and the missed dinners were all part of building their future. But as the years passed, Mia began to notice subtle changes in their relationship. David had become more distant, not just physically, but emotionally as well. The romantic gestures he used to shower her with had become less frequent, and the deep conversations they once had were replaced with brief exchanges about household matters or Issa's school activities. David's once passionate embraces had turned into absent-minded pecks on the cheek, and their shared laughter had faded into a distant memory. Still, Mia remained hopeful. She clung to the belief that this was just a phase, one that all couples went through after being married for nearly 2 decades. She convinced herself that David was simply under a lot of stress from work and that once things settled down, they would reconnect. She took on the role of the understanding wife, always supportive, always patient, and always waiting for David to come back to her. Issa, their teenage daughter, was a bright and talented girl. She had inherited her mother's beauty and her father's intelligence. As a high school student, Issa excelled in both academics and extracurricular activities. She was a dancer, a student leader, and a consistent honor student. Mia and David were proud of her accomplishments, but lately, Issa had also started to notice the growing tension between her parents. She would catch her mother staring out the window, lost in thought, or see her father working late into the night, barely acknowledging anyone as he came through the door. For Mia, her days were filled with routine. She would wake up early, prepare breakfast for Issa and David, and then go about her daily tasks, organizing the house, attending to errands, meeting with her friends for lunch, and occasionally volunteering at Issa's school. Mia found solace in these routines, as they gave her a sense of purpose. But deep down, she knew something was missing. There were times when she would catch herself standing in front of the mirror, wondering where the woman she once was had gone. The vibrant, ambitious woman who had once dreamed of conquering the world was now a housewife who felt invisible in her own home. Mia loved her family dearly, but she couldn't shake the feeling that her life had become stagnant. She longed for the intimacy and connection she once had with David, the late-night conversations, the spontaneous weekend getaways, and the simple joy of being in each other's presence. One evening, as Mia sat at the dining table, waiting for David to come home from another late night at the office, she decided to confront him. She had planned a special dinner, hoping that the candlelight and quiet atmosphere would create the perfect setting for them to talk. She dressed in the red dress David had always loved, the one he had bought for her on their anniversary years ago. She wanted to remind him of the woman he had fallen in love with, the woman who had been his partner, his confidant, and his biggest supporter. David finally walked through the door, but his expression was tired, and his eyes looked distant. He greeted Mia with a distracted smile, barely noticing the effort she had put into the evening. As they sat down to eat, Mia tried to engage him in conversation, asking about his day and how the business was going. David answered in short, clipped sentences, his mind clearly elsewhere. Frustrated, Mia took a deep breath and decided to be direct. "David, what's going on with us?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "We barely talk anymore. I feel like we're drifting apart." David looked up from his plate, surprised by her question. He hadn't expected this conversation, and for a moment, he didn't know how to respond. He had been so consumed by his work and his own internal struggles that he hadn't realized how much of a toll it had taken on their relationship. "I'm sorry, Mia," David said, rubbing his temples. "Work has been overwhelming lately. There's a lot of pressure with the new project, and I've just been trying to keep everything together." Mia nodded, but she wasn't satisfied with his answer. She knew there was more to it than just work. There was a distance between them that went beyond the long hours at the office. It was as if they were living separate lives under the same roof. "I understand that work is stressful, but that's not all it is, David," Mia said softly. "I feel like I've lost you. We don't spend time together anymore. We don't talk. You don't look at me the way you used to." David sighed and leaned back in his chair. He knew Mia was right. He had been avoiding this conversation for months, maybe even years, but he wasn't sure how to explain the growing dissatisfaction he felt in their marriage. It wasn't that he didn't love Mia. He did. But over time, something had shifted. The excitement, the passion, the spark that had once defined their relationship had faded, and he didn't know how to get it back. "Mia, I don't know what to say," David admitted, his voice heavy with regret. "I love you, but things have changed. We've changed. I don't know how to fix it." Mia's heart sank at his words. She had hoped for reassurance, for some sign that they could work through their problems. But David's admission left her feeling more lost than ever. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she quickly blinked them away, not wanting to break down in front of him. "We can fix this, David," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We just need to try. We need to make time for each other, to reconnect. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I don't want to lose you." David looked at her, his expression filled with guilt and sadness. He reached across the table and took her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "I don't want to lose you either, Mia," he said quietly. "But I don't know if that's enough." Mia's heart ached at his words. She had always believed that love was enough to overcome any obstacle, but now she wasn't so sure. David's distance, his emotional withdrawal, and the growing sense of disconnection between them made her wonder if their love was strong enough to survive. As the days went by, Mia tried to hold on to hope. She planned more romantic dinners, suggested weekend getaways, and tried to initiate conversations with David about their future. But no matter what she did, David remained distant. He was polite, even affectionate at times, but the deep emotional connection they once shared was gone. And then, one day, Mia's worst fears began to take shape. It started with small things: David's increased absences, the late-night phone calls he would take in another room, and the way he would quickly put his phone away when she entered. Mia tried to ignore it at first, convincing herself that she was being paranoid. But the nagging feeling in the pit of her stomach wouldn't go away. One afternoon, as Mia was tidying up the living room, she noticed something unusual. David had left his briefcase on the coffee table, and a piece of paper was sticking out from one of the folders. Curiosity got the better of her, and she gently pulled the paper out. It was a hotel receipt, dated from the previous week. Mia's hands trembled as she stared at the name of the hotel. A luxury hotel in the city, where David had claimed he was meeting a client for dinner. That Mia's mind raced as she tried to make sense of what she had found. She knew David had stayed out late that night, but he had told her it was just a business dinner. Had he lied to her? Was he hiding something more than just his emotional distance? The weight of the possibility of infidelity crushed Mia's chest, and she felt the walls closing in around her. She didn't want to believe it, but deep down, she knew something was terribly wrong. David had been growing more and more detached, and now there was concrete evidence that he had been keeping secrets from her. With a sinking heart, Mia realized that the life she thought was perfect was beginning to unravel before her eyes. After finding the hotel receipt, Mia's world slowly began to fracture. In the days that followed, her mind swirled with doubts, questions, and insecurities. She began replaying moments from the past few months in her head, searching for signs she may have missed, subtle clues that could have warned her about David's growing distance. Every time her thoughts lingered on that hotel receipt, her heart clenched, but she still couldn't bring herself to confront David. What if she was wrong? What if it really was just a business dinner? But the nagging feeling in her gut grew stronger each day. David's behavior had shifted in ways that were impossible to ignore. He was coming home later than usual, and when he did, he barely spoke to Mia. There was a stiffness in their interactions, as if they were two strangers living in the same house. Mia felt herself fading into the background, a ghost in her own marriage. Every attempt she made to reach out to him, to reclaim the closeness they once shared, was met with polite indifference. David would smile, respond briefly, but never engage with her deeply. His mind seemed elsewhere, far away from the family he used to cherish. One Friday evening, after yet another late night for David, Mia found herself pacing in the living room, her emotions on edge. It was nearly midnight, and David had yet to return from the office. She had texted him earlier, asking if he wanted dinner, but his reply was brief, working late again. Don't wait up. 4 months now. Mia had been making excuses for David's absences, convincing herself that it was the pressure of his work that kept him away. He had always been a driven man ever since they were young. His success in business came with sacrifice, and she had accepted that long ago. But lately, it felt like there was something more to his absences than work. Mia couldn't shake the feeling that she was losing him to someone or something else. As she stood by the window, staring out into the dark, empty street, her phone buzzed on the coffee table. It was a message from her best friend, Liza. How are you doing tonight? Want to talk? Mia stared at the screen for a moment before replying. She had been avoiding conversations with Liza about her marriage because she wasn't ready to admit that things were falling apart. Liza had been her confidant for years, and Mia knew she could trust her, but the fear of saying the words out loud, that her husband might be having an affair, kept her from opening up. Instead, Mia typed a simple reply, "Not tonight. I'm okay. Just waiting for David." Liza's response was immediate. "You know I'm here if you need to talk. Don't keep things bottled up." Mia smiled weakly at her phone, grateful for Liza's support, but she couldn't bring herself to spill the truth, not yet. She wasn't ready to admit that her perfect life might be a lie. Finally, around 1 a.m., she heard the familiar sound of David's car pulling into the driveway. She quickly wiped the tears from her eyes, not wanting him to see how upset she was. When the door opened, David walked in looking exhausted. He didn't seem surprised to see Mia still awake, but there was a brief flicker of guilt in his eyes. "Hey," he said, dropping his briefcase by the door and kicking off his shoes. "I told you not to wait up." Mia forced a smile, though her heart was racing. "I couldn't sleep," she replied, watching him closely. "You've been working late a lot lately." David sighed as he loosened his tie and collapsed onto the couch. "Yeah, the new project is taking up more time than I thought. It's been non-stop." Mia sat down next to him, her hands trembling slightly as she tried to muster the courage to say what she had been thinking for days. She took a deep breath, then finally asked, "David, is everything okay? I mean, between us?" David looked at her, his expression unreadable. For a moment, he seemed to consider her question, but then he looked away. "Mia, I'm just stressed from work. That's all. There's nothing wrong with us." But Mia wasn't convinced. There was something in his tone, something distant, that made her doubt his words. She decided to push a little further. "I found a hotel receipt the other day," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "It was from last week. You didn't mention staying at a hotel. I thought you were meeting a client for dinner." David's body tensed, and for a moment, Mia thought she saw panic flash across his face. But he quickly regained his composure and forced a smile. "It's nothing, Mia. Sometimes the client meetings run late, and I don't feel like driving all the way home, so I book a room. It's just easier that way." Mia's heart sank. She wanted to believe him. She desperately wanted to believe that he wasn't lying to her. But something about his explanation felt off. There was a coldness in his voice, a detachment that made her stomach churn. "David, if there's something you're not telling me, I need to know," Mia said, her voice shaking. "I need to know if there's someone else." David's expression hardened, and he stood up abruptly, running a hand through his hair. "Mia, I told you there's nothing going on. You're overthinking this." But the way he avoided her gaze, the way he shifted uncomfortably as he spoke, only made Mia more suspicious. She wanted to scream, to demand the truth, but instead, she sat there in silence, feeling helpless. David's words did little to ease her growing fears. She knew something was wrong, even if he wouldn't admit it. The tension between them only grew in the weeks that followed. David continued to stay out late, and Mia's suspicions deepened. She tried to keep herself busy during the day, attending yoga classes with her friends, volunteering at Issa's school, and organizing charity events. But no matter how much she tried to distract herself, her mind kept drifting back to David's strange behavior. One evening, Mia decided to follow David. She felt guilty for even considering it, but the constant doubt was eating away at her, and she needed answers. She told herself it was the only way to know the truth. So when David announced that he would be working late again, she waited until he left the house and then quietly followed him in her car, keeping a safe distance. Her heart pounded in her chest as she watched David drive into the city. She expected him to go to the office, but instead, he took an unfamiliar route, heading toward the upscale part of town. Mia's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as she followed him to a luxury hotel. The same hotel from the receipt she had found weeks earlier. David parked his car and walked inside without hesitation. Mia sat in her car, staring at the hotel entrance, her heart racing. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. He had lied to her. He wasn't at the office, and there was no client meeting. He was here for what reason, she didn't know, but it was enough to confirm her worst fears. For a moment, Mia considered confronting him right then and there, but the fear of what she might discover held her back. Instead, she drove home in a daze, her mind spinning with thoughts of betrayal and heartache. That night, Mia didn't sleep. She lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying the events of the evening over and over again. She felt sick to her stomach, her heart heavy with the weight of the truth she had uncovered. The next morning, David returned home as if nothing had happened. He greeted her with a quick kiss on the cheek and asked about her plans for the day, but Mia could barely look at him. She felt numb, the pain of his betrayal too much to bear. As the days passed, Mia became more and more withdrawn. She no longer tried to reach out to David or make an effort to reconnect. The love she had once felt for him was slowly being replaced by anger, resentment, and sadness. She had given him everything, her love, her support, her life, and this was how he repaid her. Meanwhile, David seemed oblivious to the storm brewing inside Mia. He continued his affair with Celine, the younger woman who had captured his attention and reignited the passion he had lost in his marriage. Celine was everything Mia wasn't: spontaneous, carefree, and full of energy. She made David feel alive again, and for the first time in years, he felt excitement and desire. But even as he spent more time with Celine, a part of him felt guilty for betraying Mia. David had never planned on having an affair. It had started innocently enough, late-night meetings with Celine that turned into long conversations, shared laughter, and eventually stolen kisses. Before he knew it, he was in too deep, unable to pull himself away from the intoxicating allure of a new relationship. But as his affair with Celine grew more intense, so did the cracks in his marriage. Mia's suspicions continued to grow, and the distance between them became an unbridgeable chasm. The morning after Mia followed David to the hotel, the reality of her situation set in with unbearable clarity. She sat at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped tightly around a mug of coffee she couldn't bring herself to drink. The house was quiet except for the occasional hum of the refrigerator and the soft clink of Issa's toys from the living room. It was Saturday, their supposed family day, but everything felt hollow and tense. David was still asleep upstairs, oblivious to the emotional wreckage Mia was enduring. She hadn't been able to sleep at all, her mind plagued by the images of him walking into that hotel, his easy confidence betraying the reality of his deceit. How long had he been doing this? How long had she been living in the shadow of his betrayal? Mia glanced at her phone, her thumb hovering over Liza's contact. She wanted so badly to talk to her best friend, to let out the storm of pain that had been brewing inside her for weeks, but part of her hesitated. What could Liza do? She couldn't erase the truth. Mia wasn't ready to hear the words that she already knew deep down. Instead, Mia stood up, leaving the untouched coffee on the table, and wandered into the living room where Issa was playing. Her daughter was building an intricate castle with blocks, her face lit up with the joy of childhood. For a moment, Mia just stood there, watching her, trying to anchor herself in the innocence of the moment. "Mama, look, it's a princess castle," Issa exclaimed, her tiny hands pointing at the towering structure of blocks. Mia forced a smile, kneeling beside her daughter. "It's beautiful, Issa. You did such a great job." Issa's face beamed with pride, and Mia's heart broke just a little more. How was she going to protect this innocent child from the pain that was coming? How was she going to explain to Issa that the perfect family she thought she had was falling apart? Just then, David came down the stairs, still groggy from sleep. He walked into the living room, giving Issa a quick kiss on the forehead before glancing at Mia. "Morning," he said casually, as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed, and Mia could feel the weight of it pressing down on her. "Morning," she replied, her voice tight. David didn't seem to notice her tone. He was already heading toward the kitchen, likely to grab his own cup of coffee before settling into his usual Saturday routine. Reading the paper, maybe working on a project in the garage, completely disconnected from her and the growing rift in their marriage. Mia watched him go, feeling a surge of anger rise in her chest. How could he be so calm, so nonchalant, when everything was falling apart? She wanted to scream, to demand answers, but instead, she stayed silent, knowing that a confrontation would only make things worse. The walls of their life were closing in, and David seemed oblivious to it all. Later that day, Mia found herself standing in front of the mirror in their bedroom, staring at her reflection. Her eyes were tired, dark circles forming under them from weeks of sleepless nights. She looked older, worn down by the weight of her suspicions and the loneliness she had been carrying for so long. In contrast, David seemed unaffected by the distance growing between them, his charm and ease still intact. But Mia knew better. Behind his smile, behind his casual demeanor, there were lies, deep, tangled lies. Mia's thoughts drifted back to the early days of their marriage, when everything had seemed so simple. They had been young, madly in love, and full of dreams for the future. David had been her world, and she had been his. They had built a life together, a beautiful home, a loving family. But somewhere along the way, they had lost each other. The man who had once looked at her with adoration now barely noticed her presence, and the love that had once been so strong felt like a distant memory as the day wore on. Mia's anxiety only grew. She needed to know the truth. The hotel receipt had been the first crack in the facade of their marriage, but now she needed to confront the reality of what was happening. She couldn't live in denial any longer. That evening, after Issa had gone to bed, Mia and David sat in the living room, the silence between them thick and heavy. David was flipping through channels on the TV, his mind seemingly miles away, while Mia sat beside him, her heart pounding in her chest. She had been rehearsing what she was going to say all day, but now that the moment was here, she couldn't find the words. Finally, she took a deep breath and spoke. "David, we need to talk." David glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "About what?" "About us," Mia replied, her voice trembling. "About everything." David sighed and put the remote down, turning to face her. "Mia, I told you there's nothing going on. You're overreacting." "I followed you," Mia blurted out, the words tumbling from her mouth before she could stop them. "Last night, I followed you to the hotel." David's eyes widened in shock, and for a brief moment, Mia saw a flicker of guilt cross his face. But then he quickly recovered, his expression hardening. "You followed me?" "I had to," Mia said, her voice breaking. "You've been lying to me, David. I don't know what's going on, but I know you're hiding something. I can't keep living like this, wondering where you are, who you're with. I deserve to know the truth." David stared at her, his jaw clenched. For a long moment, he said nothing, and Mia's heart raced as she waited for his response. Finally, he let out a heavy sigh and ran a hand through his hair. "Mia, it's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is," Mia demanded, tears welling up in her eyes. "Because right now it feels like you're cheating on me." David hesitated, and in that moment, Mia knew the truth. Her worst fears were confirmed. "I'm not having an affair," David said quietly, but his words felt hollow. "But there is someone else. It's not what you think, Mia. We haven't done anything. It's just, I don't know how to explain it." Mia's heart shattered. She had suspected it for weeks, but hearing the words come out of David's mouth was like a dagger to her chest. "You're in love with someone else," she whispered, her voice barely audible. David didn't deny it. Instead, he looked away, his silence speaking volumes. Mia felt like the ground had been ripped out from under her. The life she had known, the man she had loved for so many years, was slipping away from her. She had fought so hard to keep their marriage together, to hold on to the love they had once shared. But now it was clear that David was already gone. Tears streamed down Mia's face as she tried to process what was happening. "How long?" she asked, her voice breaking. "How long have you been seeing her?" "It's not like that," David said, his voice filled with frustration. "I told you, we haven't done anything. It's just, I don't know. I've been feeling disconnected from you, from us for a while now. And she made me feel something again. But it's not an affair, Mia. I swear." Mia's mind raced as she tried to make sense of David's words. He was admitting to having feelings for another woman, but he was still trying to deny that it was an affair. How could he be so blind to the damage he had already caused? "So, what does that mean?" Mia asked, her voice trembling. "Are you going to leave me for her?" David shook his head, looking genuinely conflicted. "No, Mia. I don't want to leave you. I love you. But I don't know how to fix this." Mia's heart ached at his words. She had wanted him to deny everything, to tell her that she was imagining things, that their marriage could still be saved. But instead, he had confirmed what she had feared all along. There was another woman, and David wasn't sure if he wanted to stay. The days that followed were some of the darkest in Mia's life. She tried to go about her daily routine as if nothing had changed, but everything had changed. The love she had once felt for David was now tainted by betrayal, and the future she had envisioned for their family was slipping away. David tried to make amends, promising Mia that he would end things with Celine and focus on rebuilding their marriage. But Mia wasn't sure if it was enough. Every time she looked at David, all she could see was the man who had lied to her, the man who had allowed another woman into his heart. The trust that had once been the foundation of their relationship was gone, and Mia didn't know if it could ever be repaired. Meanwhile, Celine continued to linger in the background, a constant reminder of the cracks in Mia and David's marriage. David had ended their affair, but Mia knew that the emotional connection between them hadn't been severed. It was like a shadow that hung over their relationship, always present, always threatening to pull them apart. Mia's heart ached for the love they had once shared, but she wasn't sure if she could ever forgive David for what he had done. The betrayal had cut too deep, and the wounds were still fresh. Every time she tried to move forward, to believe that their marriage could be saved, the pain of his infidelity pulled her back. As the weeks passed, Mia found herself growing more distant from David. She had once been able to confide in him, to share her fears and insecurities, but now she felt like she couldn't trust him anymore. The emotional walls she had built to protect herself from further pain were becoming impossible to break down, and the distance between them only grew wider. Issa, too young to understand what was happening, could sense the tension in the air. She asked Mia why Mommy and Daddy didn't play together anymore, why Daddy seemed so sad, but Mia didn't have the answers. All she could do was try to shield her daughter from the turmoil that was tearing their family apart. Mia knew that something had to change, but she didn't know how to move forward. She was trapped between the life she had once known and the uncertain future that lay ahead. Should she fight for her marriage? Or was it time to let go? Mia stood at the edge of her daughter Issa's bed, gazing down at the peaceful rise and fall of her tiny chest as she slept. The night light in the corner of the room cast a soft glow on the princess-themed walls, a stark contrast to the storm brewing in Mia's heart. It had been a little over a month since David had admitted his emotional affair with Celine, and life had been suspended in a painful limbo ever since. No matter how hard Mia tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy, the fractures in their marriage seemed too deep to heal. She was exhausted, emotionally, physically, spiritually. The weight of David's betrayal had settled into every corner of her life, making even the simplest tasks feel impossible. There were days when she didn't want to get out of bed, let alone be the loving mother Issa deserved or the strong woman she used to pride herself on being. Her emotions were a whirlwind: anger, sorrow, disbelief, even guilt. It was maddening to wonder whether she should have seen it coming or if she could have somehow prevented it. But deep down, Mia knew that this wasn't her fault. The hardest part wasn't just David's infidelity, it was the doubt. Even though David had sworn that nothing physical had happened between him and Celine, the emotional connection they shared was just as devastating, if not more so. Mia had always thought that their love was unshakable, that they were partners in every sense of the word. But now, she couldn't stop questioning everything. Every glance David shared with other women, every time he came home late from work, every conversation they had. Was it genuine, or was there something lurking beneath the surface? Downstairs, the soft hum of the dishwasher signaled the end of the day's mundane chores, but Mia couldn't bring herself to join David in the living room, where he was undoubtedly waiting for her. Ever since the confession, their evenings had become torturously quiet. Gone were the light-hearted conversations, the easy smiles, and the comfortable silences. Now, every moment was laden with unspoken tension, as though they were both waiting for the other to either break or heal. But Mia was far from healing. With a soft sigh, she leaned down to kiss Issa's forehead, lingering there for a moment longer than usual. Issa was her anchor in this storm, the one thing that gave her the strength to keep going, even when it felt like her world was falling apart. She was innocent in all of this, and Mia was determined to protect her from the pain that had seeped into their home. She would not let Issa's childhood be tainted by the mistakes of her parents. Quietly, Mia slipped out of Issa's room and closed the door behind her, feeling a heaviness settle over her as she made her way downstairs. She had been avoiding this moment all day, dreading the conversation that she knew was inevitable. David had been patient, giving her space, but Mia could sense that he was growing restless. They couldn't keep living like this, skirting around the elephant in the room. Something had to give. As Mia entered the living room, she found David sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the television. He looked tired, his usually sharp features softened by the weight of their shared burden. For a moment, Mia's heart ached for the man she had fallen in love with, the man who had once been her everything. But then the memory of his betrayal rushed back, and the pain quickly overshadowed any sympathy she might have felt. David looked up as she approached, his eyes filled with a mixture of regret and hope. "Mia," he said softly, as though he were afraid that speaking too loudly might shatter the fragile peace between them. "Can we talk?" Mia sat down across from him, her body stiff with tension. "About what?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. David sighed, running a hand through his hair. "About us. I can't stand this silence anymore. We need to figure out where we're going from here." Mia's heart raced at his words. She had been dreading this conversation for weeks, unsure of what she even wanted to say. She loved David, but the trust they had once shared was broken, and she didn't know if it could ever be repaired. "I don't know where we're going," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't even know if there's an us anymore." David flinched at her words, pain flashing across his face. "Mia, please. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, and I'm so sorry for that. But I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose our family. I've ended things with Celine. I haven't seen or spoken to her in weeks. I'm trying, Mia. I'm trying to fix this." Mia swallowed hard, the lump in her throat making it difficult to speak. "You say you're trying, but how am I supposed to believe you? How do I know that you won't hurt me again? That you won't find someone else to make you feel something when things get tough between us?" David leaned forward, his eyes pleading with her. "I won't. I swear to you, Mia, I won't. I made a mistake. One that I'll regret for the rest of my life. But I love you. I love Issa. You're my family, and I don't want to lose that. Mia looked away, her chest tight with emotion. She wanted to believe him. God, how she wanted to believe him. But trust wasn't something that could be rebuilt overnight. It would take time, and she wasn't sure if she had the strength to go through the process of healing, knowing that there was always a risk that he could break her heart again. I don't know if I can forgive you, she whispered, her voice trembling with the weight of her pain. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. David's face crumpled with sorrow, and for a moment, Mia saw the man she had married, the man who had once been her rock, her partner, her best friend. I understand, he said quietly, and I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back. But, Mia, I can't do it alone. I need you to meet me halfway. I need to know that you're willing to try. Mia's heart ached at his words. She wanted to try, but the fear of being hurt again was almost too much to bear. Still, the thought of losing David, of losing the family they had built together, was even more terrifying. I don't know how to move forward from here, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. But I don't want to lose you either. For the first time in what felt like months, David's face softened with relief. He reached across the table, his hand trembling slightly as he took hers. We'll figure it out, he promised. Together. Mia looked down at their joined hands, her heart torn between hope and fear. It would be a long road to healing, and there were no guarantees. But for the first time since David's confession, she felt a glimmer of hope, a small, fragile spark that maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back to each other. The days that followed were filled with tentative steps toward reconciliation. Mia and David both agreed to attend marriage counseling, hoping that with the help of a professional, they could begin to untangle the mess of emotions that had been building between them for months. The sessions were difficult, often forcing Mia to confront the pain of David's betrayal head-on. But they were also cathartic in a way. For the first time in months, Mia felt like she was being heard, like David was truly listening to her, not just brushing aside her feelings in an attempt to avoid conflict. But it wasn't just counseling that brought them closer. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the little things began to shift between them. David started helping more around the house, taking over some of the responsibilities that had fallen solely on Mia's shoulders. He became more present with Issa, making a concerted effort to be involved in her daily life in ways that he hadn't before. And in the quiet moments, those rare, fragile pockets of time when the house was still and Issa was asleep, they began to talk. Not just about the big things, but about the small, everyday details that had once been a staple of their relationship. It wasn't easy. There were days when Mia felt like giving up, when the weight of the past threatened to pull her under. The memory of David's betrayal was never far from her mind, and there were moments when the hurt bubbled up to the surface, raw and jagged. But for every step back, there were small victories, moments of laughter, of connection, of hope. One evening, after Issa had gone to bed and the house was quiet, Mia found herself sitting on the back porch, wrapped in a blanket against the cool evening air. David joined her, handing her a cup of tea before sitting down beside her. For a long time, they sat in silence, watching the stars blink into existence in the darkening sky. I miss this, David said quietly, breaking the silence. Mia glanced at him, her heart heavy with the weight of his words. Miss what? This, he said, gesturing to the sky, the porch, the quiet moment between them. Just being here with you. I miss us, Mia. Mia looked away, her eyes stinging with unshed tears. I miss us too, she admitted softly. The weeks rolled by with a strange rhythm, a mix of hesitant hope and lingering sorrow. For Mia, each day felt like a balancing act between trying to move forward and being pulled back into the darkness of the past. She could feel the tension in the air like a taut string that could snap at any moment. Though she and David had made the decision to fight for their marriage, the scars of betrayal were not easily healed, and Mia found herself continually haunted by the echo of his affair. On the outside, things had started to look better. David had been doing his best to rebuild trust, his actions aligning with his promises. He was home earlier than usual, no longer retreating into his phone or work. Their conversations were more open, filled with the raw honesty that Mia had been craving for months. They attended their marriage counseling sessions regularly, working through their issues one by one. But beneath it all, Mia's heart was still fragile, her trust like a delicate vase that had been shattered and painstakingly pieced back together. The complexity of her emotions made everything feel twice as hard. The days that used to pass without a second thought were now filled with internal monologues of doubt, hope, fear, and forgiveness. Could she truly forgive David for what he had done? And more importantly, could she forgive herself for staying? Mia often found herself sitting alone in the quiet hours of the night, replaying the events that had led to this. It wasn't just the affair, it was the slow unraveling of their relationship that had come before. David's emotional distance, the way he had withdrawn from her, their lack of communication. In some ways, the affair had been the inevitable result of all the cracks in their foundation. And yet, it still felt like a betrayal she couldn't shake. One evening, as Mia sat at the kitchen table, sipping a glass of wine and staring out into the darkness beyond the window, she heard David's footsteps approaching. He had just finished putting Issa to bed, and the house was finally still. He entered the kitchen quietly, his expression guarded as he approached her. "Mia," he began softly, "can we talk?" Mia glanced at him, her stomach twisting into knots. She wasn't sure if she was ready for another heavy conversation, but she knew they couldn't avoid these moments forever. Setting her glass down, she nodded. "What do you want to talk about?" David pulled out a chair and sat across from her, his eyes searching her face as though he was trying to gauge how much she could handle. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice low, "about everything, about us, about what I did, and about where we go from here." Mia felt a familiar ache in her chest as his words settled between them. It seemed like every conversation they had now was a reflection of the same painful theme: the past, the betrayal, the uncertain future. And yet, she couldn't deny that these conversations were necessary, no matter how much they hurt. "I'm trying, David," she whispered, her voice laced with emotion. "I'm trying to move past this, to trust you again. But it's not easy. Every time I look at you, I'm reminded of what you did, of how you chose someone else over me." David's face crumpled with guilt, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "I never meant to hurt you, Mia. I swear I never wanted to hurt you. It's just," he hesitated, struggling to find the right words. "I was lost. We were both so disconnected, and I made a mistake. A terrible, unforgivable mistake. But I never stopped loving you." Mia's heart clenched at his words, a familiar sense of anger bubbling up inside her. She had heard this before, his explanation, his justification for why he had let their marriage fall apart. And while part of her understood the loneliness he had felt, the other part of her couldn't forgive him for how he had handled it. "I just don't understand, David," she said, her voice trembling with the weight of her emotions. "Why didn't you come to me? Why didn't you tell me how you were feeling, instead of turning to someone else?" David lowered his gaze, his hands gripping the edge of the table as if to steady himself. "I don't know," he admitted quietly. "I guess I was afraid that you wouldn't want to hear it, that you'd think I was blaming you or that I wasn't happy with you. I didn't know how to tell you that I felt invisible." "Invisible," Mia repeated, her voice tinged with disbelief. "You think I wasn't feeling the same way? You think I didn't feel neglected, like you were slipping away from me? I was hurting too, David, but I didn't run to someone else for comfort." David flinched at her words, his face etched with regret. I know I should have come to you. I should have fought for us instead of running away. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I need you to know that I'm sorry, and that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to fix this." Mia let out a shaky breath, her eyes burning with unshed tears. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that they could somehow salvage what was left of their marriage. But the road ahead seemed impossibly long, and she wasn't sure if she had the strength to keep walking it. "I'm tired, David," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm so tired of feeling like this, of questioning everything, of wondering if I'll ever be able to trust you again. I don't know how to do this." David reached across the table, his hand trembling slightly as he took hers. "You don't have to do it alone," he said softly. We'll do it together, one step at a time. Mia looked down at their joined hands, her heart aching with a mixture of hope and fear. She wanted to believe him, to believe that they could somehow rebuild what had been broken. But the fear of being hurt again was overwhelming, and she wasn't sure if she could survive another blow to her heart. I don't know if I can forgive you, she admitted, her voice thick with emotion. David's grip on her hand tightened slightly, his eyes filled with pain. I understand, but I'm not going anywhere. I'll wait for as long as it takes. I just need you to know that I'm not giving up on us. The weeks that followed were a mix of good days and bad. Some days, Mia felt like they were making progress, that the pieces of their broken relationship were slowly being put back together. Other days, the weight of David's betrayal felt as heavy as ever, and she found herself questioning whether she had made the right decision in staying. Their marriage counseling sessions continued, and while they were often emotionally draining, Mia found them to be a lifeline. The therapist helped them navigate the difficult conversations, forcing them to confront the pain and resentment that had been festering between them for so long. Slowly, Mia began to understand some of the underlying issues that had led to their disconnect. The long hours David had spent at work, the lack of communication between them, the way they had both fallen into the trap of taking each other for granted. But understanding didn't necessarily make it easier to move on. Mia's trust in David had been shattered, and she wasn't sure if it could ever be fully repaired. Every time she saw him with his phone, a pang of doubt would shoot through her, wondering if he was messaging someone else. Every time he came home late from work, her mind would race with fears that he was seeing Celine again, even though he had assured her that their relationship was over. David, for his part, was doing everything he could to reassure her. He had become more transparent, sharing his schedule with her, leaving his phone out in the open, and making a conscious effort to be present in their relationship. But no matter how hard he tried, there was always a part of Mia that couldn't fully let go of the fear that he would betray her again. One evening, after Issa had gone to bed, Mia found herself sitting on the back porch again, wrapped in a blanket and staring out into the darkened sky. The cool night air brushed against her skin, and for a moment, she allowed herself to close her eyes and simply breathe. The stillness of the night was comforting, a brief reprieve from the chaos that had become her life. David joined her a few minutes later, sitting down beside her without a word. For a long time, they sat in silence, the only sound the soft rustling of leaves in the breeze. I miss us, David said quietly, echoing the same words he had spoken weeks earlier. Mia didn't respond right away, her mind swirling with 1,000 thoughts. She missed them too, missed the way they used to be before everything had fallen apart. But the reality of their situation was so much more complicated now. They couldn't just go back to the way things were, no matter how much they both wanted to. I miss us too, she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. David turned to look at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and regret. Do you think we can ever get back to that? Mia swallowed hard, her throat tight with emotion. I don't know, she admitted honestly. I don't know if we'll ever be the same as we were before. But maybe that's not what we should be aiming for. Maybe we need to. As the first light of dawn crept through the curtains, Mia awoke with a heavy heart yet again. The sun's rays spilled into their bedroom, casting a soft golden glow that contrasted sharply with the turmoil swirling within her. David lay beside her, his breathing steady and calm, a reminder of the fragile peace they had managed to build over the past weeks. But beneath the surface, Mia still felt like a storm was brewing inside her, one that she couldn't quite understand or contain. Rising from bed, she slipped into the kitchen, careful not to wake David. The familiar routine of brewing coffee felt comforting, grounding her in the present as she listened to the rhythmic drip of the machine. The aroma filled the air, and for a moment, she tried to focus on the simple pleasure of the moment: coffee, quiet, and the promise of a new day. But as she sipped her drink, her mind wandered back to their recent conversations, the revelations that had surfaced during their therapy sessions, and the immense weight of their shared history. The process of healing was proving to be both enlightening and exhausting. Mia had begun to understand the intricate web of emotions that connected her and David. The love, the anger, the hurt, and the hope. Each therapy session forced them to confront difficult truths, peeling back layers of their relationship that had remained hidden for far too long. It was painful, but it was also necessary. In one of their recent sessions, the therapist had asked Mia to share her feelings not just about the affair, but about her own needs and expectations in the relationship. That conversation had been eye-opening for both of them. Mia had discovered that her silence over the years had been a source of resentment, a weight she had carried without ever fully articulating it. She had allowed David's needs and priorities to overshadow her own, resulting in a profound sense of invisibility that had ultimately contributed to their rift. Reflecting on that session, Mia felt a mixture of guilt and empowerment. She recognized that while David's actions had caused significant pain, she also bore responsibility for not speaking up sooner about her needs. It was a sobering realization, but one that would help her navigate the healing process more effectively. She couldn't change what had happened, but she could change how she approached their relationship moving forward. With renewed determination, Mia decided to take charge of her life. She made a list of things she wanted to communicate to David: her feelings, her desires, and what she needed from him in order to feel safe and secure in their relationship again. This time, she would be open, honest, and unafraid of the consequences. After the morning rush to get Issa ready for school, Mia sat down with David at the kitchen table, feeling a mixture of nervousness and anticipation. He looked up from his coffee, sensing the seriousness of her demeanor. "Is everything okay?" he asked, concern etched on his face. Mia took a deep breath, steeling herself for the conversation. "I need to talk to you about something important," she began, her voice steady but soft. "It's about us and what we need to do to move forward." David nodded, his attention fully on her. "I'm listening, Kropka." Mia felt a surge of confidence as she began to speak, her words flowing freely. "I've realized that I haven't been vocal about my needs in our relationship. I've often put your needs before my own, and in doing so, I lost a part of myself. I want to change that. I want us to communicate openly, even when it's uncomfortable." David listened intently, his eyes never leaving hers. "I didn't realize you felt that way," he admitted, his tone sincere. "I'm sorry if I've made you feel like your needs didn't matter." Mia continued, "I need to feel valued and heard, David. I want us to share our feelings regularly, even the hard ones. I want us to work as a team to support each other. I can't keep living in fear that you'll slip away again, and I want to build a relationship that feels safe and loving." David reached across the table, taking her hands in his. "I want that too, Mia. I want us to be open and honest. I want you to feel safe with me again. I'll do whatever it takes to make that happen." Mia's heart swelled with hope at his words. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but the foundation for healing was finally being laid. They spent the next hour discussing their feelings and aspirations, talking openly about their fears and what they needed from each other. As they spoke, it felt as if the barriers that had once divided them were slowly being dismantled, brick by brick. Later that week, Mia decided it was time to address the more practical aspects of their relationship. She wanted to reclaim her independence, to remind herself that she was more than just a wife or a mother. She was an individual with her own dreams and aspirations. It was time to start focusing on herself again, to invest in her own happiness. She enrolled in a yoga class that she had always wanted to try, excited about the prospect of finding balance and peace within herself. She also began to explore new hobbies, reigniting her passion for painting that had been buried under the weight of daily responsibilities. Each brushstroke on the canvas felt like a release, an expression of the emotions that had been pinned up for so long. At the same time, Mia encouraged David to pursue his own interests as well. They discussed how they could support each other's individual pursuits while still prioritizing their family and relationship. It felt liberating to establish boundaries, to recognize that they could be partners without losing their identities. As weeks passed, Mia felt the fog of resentment slowly lifting. She and David were still navigating the complexities of their relationship, but they were doing so with renewed commitment and understanding. They continued attending therapy, where they delved deeper into the roots of their struggles, learning valuable communication skills and strategies to rebuild their connection. In one particularly impactful session, Their therapist guided them through an exercise that involved sharing their visions for the future. They were each asked to articulate their hopes and dreams for the relationship, what they wanted it to look like in 5, 10, or even 20 years. Mia felt a surge of excitement as she shared her vision. A home filled with love and laughter, where their daughter thrived, and where she and David were partners in every sense of the word. David's vision mirrored hers, filled with dreams of travel, adventure, and a deep connection that transcended their struggles. As they shared, it became evident that they both longed for the same things: a loving family, a strong partnership, and the ability to grow together as individuals. That evening, after their therapy session, Mia and David returned home with a renewed sense of purpose. As they sat on the couch together, Mia felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the journey they were on. It was difficult and messy, but they were willing to fight for each other. "I'm proud of us," Mia said softly, leaning against David. "We're making progress." David wrapped his arms around her, holding her close. "We are, and I'll keep working to show you how much you mean to me." As the warmth of his embrace enveloped her, Mia felt a sense of hope blooming in her heart. The road ahead would undoubtedly be filled with challenges, but they were learning to navigate them together, hand in hand. She realized that healing was not a destination, but a journey, a continuous process of growth and understanding. Days turned into weeks, and slowly but surely, Mia began to rediscover the joy in her life. The yoga classes invigorated her body and mind, while her painting allowed her to express emotions she had long suppressed. David, too, had started pursuing his interests, which made him happier and more engaged in their relationship. One afternoon, while Mia was painting in her studio, she received a message from David asking her to meet him at the park. Curiosity piqued. She set down her brush and headed out, her heart fluttering with anticipation. When she arrived, David was waiting with a picnic blanket spread on the grass and a basket filled with their favorite snacks. The sun cast a warm glow over the park, and the laughter of children playing nearby filled the air. It felt like a scene from a dream, one that Mia had longed for in the depths of her despair. "Surprise," David said, a broad smile lighting up his face. "I thought we could spend the afternoon together, just the two of us." Mia's heart swelled as she joined him on the blanket, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. They shared food, laughter, and stories, reminiscing about their early days together. The late-night talks, the spontaneous adventures, the dreams they had woven into their lives. As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over everything, David took her hand in his and looked deeply into her eyes. "Mia, I know we've been through a lot, and I still have a long way to go to earn your trust back. But I promise you that I'm committed to us. I want to be the partner you deserve." Mia felt tears prick her eyes as she squeezed his hand, the sincerity of his words washing over her. "I want that too, David. I want to believe in us again." In that moment, surrounded by nature and the warmth of their connection, Mia realized that while the scars of the past would never completely fade, they could create something beautiful together. They could forge a new path, one built on trust, communication, and a love that had weathered the storm that as the sky turned shades of orange and pink. Mia felt hope blooming within her. The journey of healing was far from over, but she was ready to embrace it one step at a time. Together, they would navigate the challenges and joys of life, and with each passing day, their love would grow stronger. And so, they sat hand in hand, watching the sun dip below the horizon, feeling grateful for the second chance they had been given. The love that had once felt lost began to re-emerge, brighter and more resilient than ever before, as they ventured forth into the unknown, ready to face whatever life had in store for them. As the vibrant hues of the sunset faded into the twilight, Mia and David settled into a comfortable silence, a sense of shared understanding enveloping them. In that moment, it felt as if they were standing on the precipice of something transformative, the past slowly giving way to a new chapter in their lives. It was a chapter marked by renewed hope, commitment, and the promise of rediscovery. In the days that followed, Mia found herself reflecting on the changes she had embraced. Her yoga practice had become a vital part of her routine, providing a sanctuary where she could reconnect with her body and mind. The gentle movements and calming breaths had not only helped her regain physical strength, but also served as a reminder of the importance of being present. It was in these moments of stillness that she could quiet the noise of her insecurities and doubts, allowing her to appreciate the beauty of life. Meanwhile, David had been equally proactive, diving into his own pursuits with enthusiasm. He had reconnected with old friends and explored hobbies he had once enjoyed, including photography. One sunny afternoon, he surprised Mia with a series of stunning portraits he had taken of her while she was painting in her studio. Each image captured the essence of her spirit, her creativity, and the joy that radiated from her. "You're incredible," Mia marveled, gazing at the photos. "These are beautiful." David beamed with pride, his eyes sparkling. "I wanted to capture you in your element. This is who you are, passionate and full of life." "I'm sorry, I didn't see it before." Mia's heart swelled at his words, a wave of gratitude washing over her. They had both come to understand that nurturing their individual passions was essential for their growth as a couple. In the past, they had unknowingly stifled each other's interests, but now, they were learning to celebrate their differences. They were no longer two halves of a whole. They were two complete individuals, willing to support one another's journeys that as the weeks turned into months. Mia and David continued their therapy sessions, delving deeper into their emotions and experiences. Each meeting unearthed layers of vulnerability, and while it was uncomfortable at times, they felt a profound sense of healing in the honesty of their discussions. They began to explore the roots of their issues, from childhood experiences to societal expectations that had shaped their identities. Each revelation brought them closer, peeling back the protective layers they had built over the years. In one particularly memorable session, their therapist guided them through an exercise that involved writing letters to each other. The letters were meant to express their feelings about the relationship, their hopes for the future, and any lingering fears they still held. As Mia penned her letter, she felt the weight of her emotions spill onto the page. Fear, hope, anger, and love intertwining in a complex tapestry of feelings. When the time came to share their letters, Mia felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. David's eyes glistened with anticipation as he read her heartfelt words aloud. She had poured her soul into that letter, laying bare her vulnerabilities and expressing her desire to rebuild their relationship on a foundation of honesty and mutual respect. "I want you to know that I believe in us, David," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I believe we can create a love that's stronger than ever if we keep communicating and supporting each other." David's response was equally heartfelt, his voice thick with emotion as he read his letter. "I know I've hurt you deeply, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I promise to always listen, to always prioritize our relationship, and to always fight for our love." As they shared their letters, tears flowed freely, a cathartic release of pent-up emotions that had been bottled for far too long. It was a powerful moment of connection, a reminder that they were in this together, ready to confront their demons and emerge stronger. Inspired by their therapy sessions, Mia and David began to create new rituals in their relationship, small moments of connection that reminded them of their love and commitment to one another. They scheduled weekly date nights, where they explored new restaurants, tried different cuisines, or even cooked together at home. These evenings became sacred, a time to unwind, share laughter, and reconnect on a deeper level. One evening, as they prepared dinner together, Mia noticed how effortlessly they moved around each other in the kitchen. Chopping vegetables, stirring sauces, and stealing kisses in between tasks felt like a dance, a choreography of love that had been missing for so long. She laughed as David playfully splashed water at her while washing dishes, and in that moment, she realized just how much she had missed this simple joy. "Remember when we used to have dinner parties with friends?" Mia said, reminiscing about the early days of their relationship. David nodded, a smile creeping across his face. "Those were the best. We should do that again. Invite some friends over for a potluck." Excitement bubbled within her at the idea. "Yes, let's make it happen." With a newfound sense of purpose, They began planning their first dinner party in years, excitedly reaching out to friends and coordinating dishes. The prospect of laughter, good food, and shared memories filled the air with an infectious energy that uplifted both of their spirits. As the night of the dinner party approached, Mia felt a sense of nervous anticipation. Would their friends notice the changes in their relationship? Would they be able to navigate the evening without any awkwardness? David reassured her, reminding her that they were a team, ready to face whatever came their way. When the night finally arrived, the warmth of friendship filled their home as guests arrived, each bringing their own dish to share. Laughter echoed through the halls, and the atmosphere buzzed with excitement and love. Mia found herself in her element, mingling with friends and reminiscing about old times. David moved through the crowd with ease, engaging in lively conversations and ensuring everyone felt welcome. As the evening unfolded, Mia and David exchanged glances filled with love and gratitude, each moment serving as a reminder of the journey they had undertaken together. They had transformed their pain into strength, and now they were surrounded by the love and support of their friends, reinforcing the belief that they were not alone in this journey. Towards the end of the evening, after the last guest had left and the dishes were cleared away, Mia and David found themselves curled up on the couch, reflecting on the night. The remnants of laughter lingered in the air, and the warmth of the connections they had shared enveloped them. "That was amazing," Mia said, her eyes sparkling. "I didn't realize how much I missed this." "Me too," David replied, wrapping his arms around her. "It felt like old times, didn't it?" Mia leaned into him, feeling safe and cherished. "It really did. I think we're starting to find our way back to each other." As they sat in the quiet comfort of their living room, the walls echoing with the memories of the evening, Mia felt a profound sense of gratitude. They had taken significant steps forward in their healing journey, and while the road ahead was still filled with challenges, they were no longer burdened by the weight of their past. They were embracing the present, eager to forge a brighter future together. In the following weeks, they continued to cultivate their newfound closeness. Mia began to notice subtle shifts in David's behavior. He was more attentive, more present. He made it a point to check in with her throughout the day, sending sweet messages or calling to ask how her day was going. Each gesture reinforced the love and commitment they had rekindled. But as they continued to heal, they also faced moments of uncertainty. The past would occasionally resurface, haunting them like ghosts in the corners of their minds. There were still times when Mia would feel a pang of insecurity or doubt, wondering if they could truly overcome the shadows of betrayal. In those moments, she would lean on the strategies they had learned in therapy, reminding herself that healing was a journey, not a destination. One afternoon, while out for a walk in the park, Mia found herself lost in thought, grappling with feelings of inadequacy. As they strolled hand in hand, David sensed her unease and gently squeezed her hand, pulling her from her reverie. "Hey, what's on your mind?" he asked, concern etched on his face. Mia hesitated for a moment, then decided to share her feelings. "I've just been thinking about everything we've been through. Sometimes I worry that I'm not enough for you, that the past will always haunt us." David stopped walking and turned to face her, his expression earnest. "Mia, you are more than enough for me. We've both made mistakes, but what matters is how we choose to move forward. You're incredible, and I'm grateful for every moment we share." Mia felt a rush of warmth at his words, a balm for her lingering insecurities. "I'm trying to believe that," she admitted. "I just want us to keep moving forward and not slip back into old patterns." "We will," David promised, his gaze unwavering. "We've come too far to go back now. We're building something new, and I'm committed to this journey with you." As they continued their walk, Mia felt a renewed sense of determination. They were not defined by their past, but by the choices they made in the present. Together, they would navigate the complexities of their relationship, emerging stronger and more connected with each step. Weeks turned into months, and the seasons began to change. Fall arrived, painting the world in warm shades of orange and gold. With each passing day, Mia and David embraced their evolving relationship, learning to communicate openly and authentically. They celebrated small victories, like moments of vulnerability that brought them closer, or instances when they overcame conflict with grace and understanding. One crisp autumn day, as they explored a local pumpkin patch, David took Mia's hand and led her to a cozy corner adorned with vibrant pumpkins and hay bales. As they settled onto a haystack, surrounded by laughter and the smell of freshly baked goods, David took a deep breath, preparing to share something significant. "Mia," he began, his voice steady, "I've been thinking a lot about us and how far we've come. I want you to know that I'm all in. I want to build a future together. A future filled with love, trust, and endless adventures." Mia's heart raced at his words, a wave of emotion washing over her. "Really? You mean that?" she asked, her eyes glistening. "Absolutely," David replied, a smile spreading across his face. "You are my partner, my best friend, and I can't imagine my life without you. Let's make this journey together." With tears of joy welling in her eyes, Mia nodded, feeling a surge of hope and love. "I want that too, David. I'm ready for whatever comes next." As they shared their dreams and aspirations for the future, it felt as if the weight of the past had lifted, replaced by a sense of clarity and purpose. They envisioned travels to distant places, building a home filled with laughter, and creating a family rooted in love and acceptance. That evening, as they returned home, the world felt alive with possibility. Mia took a moment to reflect on how far they had come, how love had triumphed over pain, and how their relationship had blossomed into something beautiful and resilient. In the weeks that followed, Mia and David began to lay the groundwork for their future together. They started exploring home buying options, visiting open houses, and discussing their dream home. It was thrilling to imagine a space that would be uniquely theirs, a sanctuary filled with love, creativity, and warmth. On weekends, they would visit local markets, picking out fresh produce and flowers for their meals, and it felt as though they were weaving the fabric of their lives together. Each shared meal, each heartfelt conversation, and each moment of laughter became threads that formed a tapestry of love and commitment. But even as they built their dreams, they were reminded of the importance of nurturing their individual journeys. Mia continued her art, pouring her heart into her paintings, while David pursued his photography with passion. They made a pact to always support each other's dreams, understanding that their individual growth would only strengthen their bond. One day, as Mia was preparing for an art exhibition, she felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. It was a significant opportunity for her, showcasing her work to a wider audience. She confided in David about her fears, and he responded with unwavering support. "You've worked so hard for this, Mia," he encouraged. "You're going to shine. Just be yourself, and let your art speak for you." His belief in her ignited a spark of confidence. And on the day of the exhibition, Mia felt a rush of adrenaline as she stepped into the gallery. The atmosphere buzzed with energy as art enthusiasts milled about, admiring the various pieces on display. When she saw her work prominently featured, her heart swelled with pride. Throughout the evening, David stood by her side, engaging with guests and sharing stories behind her paintings. His enthusiasm was contagious, and Mia felt a renewed sense of purpose as she spoke about her artistic journey. As the night wore on, she was approached by a local art critic who expressed interest in her work. They engaged in a thoughtful conversation about her inspirations and the stories behind her pieces. Mia felt invigorated, and when the critic complimented her talent, she knew she was on the right path. After the exhibition, Mia and David celebrated her success with a quiet dinner at their favorite restaurant. They toasted to her achievements, and as they clinked their glasses, Mia felt a deep sense of gratitude for the love and support that had propelled her forward. As the months passed, their relationship continued to flourish. They traveled to new destinations, explored the beauty of nature, and found joy in the simple moments of everyday life. Each adventure brought them closer, reinforcing the bond they had nurtured through love and commitment. However, their journey was not without its challenges. Occasionally, the shadows of the past would resurface, reminding them of the pain they had endured. But now, they faced those moments with courage, armed with the tools they had learned in therapy. They communicated openly, reminding each other of their commitment to growth and healing. One winter evening, as snowflakes danced outside their window, David surprised Mia with a cozy night in. He prepared a warm dinner, lit candles, and set up a movie marathon of their favorite films. As they cuddled under blankets, watching the flickering screen, Mia felt an overwhelming sense of love and contentment. "Do you remember our first movie night?" David asked, a smile tugging at his lips. Mia laughed, her heart swelling at the memory. "Of course. We got into a heated debate about which movie to watch, and you ended up falling asleep halfway through." David chuckled, feigning innocence. "Hey, I was just resting my eyes." But I wouldn't trade those moments for anything. As the night wore on, they exchanged stories and laughter, reminiscing about the early days of their relationship. With each shared memory, they reaffirmed the love that had blossomed through the trials they had faced. And then, as the clock struck midnight, David turned to Mia, his expression serious yet tender. "I want to ask you something," he said, taking a deep breath. Mia felt her heart race as she looked into his eyes, sensing the weight of his words. "What is it?" "I want to spend the rest of my life with you," he said, his voice steady and filled with emotion. "Will you marry me?" In that moment, time seemed to stand still. Mia's breath caught in her throat as joy flooded her heart. "Yes, yes, of course," she exclaimed, tears of happiness streaming down her cheeks. David slipped a delicate ring onto her finger, and as he kissed her, the world around them faded away. They were enveloped in a cocoon of love, a promise of forever that felt both exhilarating and comforting. As they embraced, Mia reflected on their journey, the trials they had faced, the lessons they had learned, and the love that had endured through it all. Together, they had grown, and now they were ready to step into the next chapter of their lives as partners, united in their commitment to each other. In the months that followed, they began planning their wedding, excitedly sharing their vision for the day that would celebrate their love. Family and friends rallied around them, offering support and encouragement, and Mia felt a deep sense of community and love surrounding them. The wedding day arrived, bathed in sunlight and filled with laughter. Mia stood before the mirror, adorned in her wedding gown, her heart racing with anticipation. David's love and unwavering support had transformed her, and as she looked into her reflection, she saw a woman ready to embrace the future. As they exchanged vows, surrounded by loved ones, Mia felt an overwhelming sense of joy. The words they spoke echoed their commitment to navigate life together, supporting each other through thick and thin. They sealed their promises with a kiss, the beginning of a new journey as husband and wife. The celebration that followed was filled with laughter, music, and dancing. As they twirled around the dance floor, surrounded by their friends and family, Mia knew that this love was unlike anything she had ever experienced. It was a love that had weathered storms, had grown through adversity, and was now thriving in a beautiful light. In the months after their wedding, Mia and David settled into married life, cherishing each day as a new adventure. They continued to support each other's passions and dreams, learning to navigate the complexities of adulthood as a team. They traveled to new places, embraced new experiences, and always found time for the simple joys of life. A quiet evening at home, a spontaneous road trip, or a cozy night under the stars. As seasons changed, so did their lives, yet their love remained steadfast. They embraced the ebbs and flows, knowing that together they could weather anything. Their relationship was a living testament to the power of love, healing, and commitment, an unbreakable bond that had emerged from the ashes of their struggles. In time, they began to discuss the possibility of starting a family, eager to share their love and values with the next generation. It was a new chapter filled with excitement and anticipation, and they approached it with the same dedication and love that had brought them together. As they sat on their porch one evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Mia leaned her head on David's shoulder. "I never imagined we'd be here," she said softly. "I'm so grateful for everything we've been through." David kissed the top of her head, wrapping his arms around her. "Me too. I wouldn't trade a single moment. Our journey has shaped us, and I believe it's only the beginning." Mia looked up at him, her heart swelling with love. Whatever comes next, I'm ready to face it with you. And so, hand in hand, they embrace the journey ahead, ready to navigate the adventures of life together, fortified by the love they had built. They had learned that love was not a destination, but a journey, a continuous exploration of growth, connection, and unwavering support. Together, they would write the next chapters of their lives, creating a story filled with love, laughter, and endless possibilities. Hope you enjoyed this story. Don't forget to like it and subscribe to our channel. Your participation is essential so that we can continue to bring you more incredible stories. Share it with your friends to help our channel grow. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.